Hey guys, Jay Young with Young Red Angus. Thank you so much for making this video a part of your day. I took some time off in December to really focus on the direction I wanted to take the YouTube channel in the future. And as I took time off, I was excited about the direction that we're going, but I really wanted to focus on the first few videos of this new year being about what did we learn this past year. So this video is going to be all about what we learned doing Su Compost in 2022. So we're going to roll the intro and get into this video, and I think you're going to love it. I think you're going to love the videos and the direction that we're going in the future. So roll the intro.
And this is what we all feel, let's just not deny it. Something pulls and it tears in the deepest place. This is what we all know, why must we still fight it? It's time to open our eyes and acknowledge the writing on the wall.
Before we get started with today's video, I have to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, and that is Fed and Happy. Fed and Happy is a company that's going to provide you with two things that you need if you're going to get started with Su. One, they have the red wiggler worms that you want to break down your compost, and two, they have vermicomposting for sale. So this vermicomposting, if you're ready to get started doing Su, but you have to wait a year for your compost to break down, go to fedandhappy.com, order their vermicasting, and you can start applying compost extract to your seeds today. Or if you want to get your Su going with the red wiggler worms, you can go to fedandhappy.com and order those as well. Either way, check out their website, fedandhappy.com. Today's video is about Su composting, but specifically all the things that we kind of picked up in this past year and some of the stuff that we've picked up in the past 3 years of doing Su Compost. So we'll talk about the design of our bioreactor, what we like in the two different designs and why we're using two different designs. We'll talk about watering, we'll talk about anaerobic conditions, and we'll talk about storage and ingredients. So let's get started with talking about the design. We have two main designs that we utilize this year, and I really like both of them. If you guys want to see how to build them, you can watch this video. We'll share it at the end of this video, and that video is about the three designs that we've utilized and the pros and cons to both. But really, right now, I just want to focus on the two. I really like these two bioreactors, and this is what we're going to primarily use going forward is these two designs, and that's the triple stack method and the tote method. I really like the triple stack method for three reasons. Number one, as they break down, you can pop the tops off, and if you have three triple stack bioreactors, in a month when it breaks down past that top ring, you can pop the three tops off of those three bioreactors and start a brand new bioreactor. So I like the efficiency that the triple stack method brings. The second thing I like about the triple stack method over the tote method is that as it breaks down, in the end, you're going to get more compost because you started with a higher bioreactor. So you're putting more mass in there, you're going to get more mass out in the end. The last thing I like about it is that once it breaks down to that final ring, it's much easier to harvest the compost out of one of the bioreactors from the triple stack method than it will be from the tote method because of the dimensions of the triple stack, because we were able to take those layers off as they broke down. The pros to doing the tote method are, one, it's much easier to make, and when I say easier, it's quicker. You just cut the top off of it, pull the bladder out, drill holes in the bottom of the bladder, put something in the bottom of that cage, and then set the bladder down on top of that, and then you're ready to fill the bioreactor. I mean, you got to get the pipes in there, obviously, but once you get the pipes in there, you fill the bioreactor, you're good to go. It really, doesn't take very long to build that. Whereas opposed to the triple stack method, it's going to take more time to build that. But once you get it started, it really, I like the triple stack method better, but I'm utilizing both designs right now because we have the designs from the totes started from last year. Oh, also on the totes, if you keep these outside for a long period of time and you live in a dry and arid environment like we do, the triple stack method is more likely to dry out than having them in a straight tote because that plastic protects the outside from the weather a little bit better. Now, and As it breaks down, it doesn't take long for it to shrink back against that plastic, and so you're still going to get good airflow along the sides of the plastic. We've had them break down and not go anaerobic, having them in the plastic totes. So it's a design that's going to work going forward and that we're confident in. One last thing I want to cover on the design of the bioreactor is the bottoms. So we stopped cutting holes in the bottom of our bioreactors to put the PVC pipe. Instead, we leave it all the same on the bottom and just drill a bunch of holes in the bottom of those bioreactor, or in the bottom of the pallet or the metal pallets that we're getting from the totes. And so we drill a bunch of holes in the bottom of those. The next thing we need to talk about is storage. You don't want your Johnson Su compost to freeze. That's going to slow the development of the fungus. So the freezing event will kill your fungus. When it warms back up, the fungus will become active again, but you're hindering the growth of those populations, and your fungus isn't going to, your compost isn't going to develop the fungal populations like you want if you let them freeze. So a couple of things. One, if you do it and you let them freeze, you'll be okay, because the first year we had ours freeze. It's just going to stunt your fungal population. I really recommend not letting it freeze. So try not to, if you can't avoid it, you can still make your Johnson Su compost. It's just not going to be as fungally dominant. If you can avoid it, you can avoid it by wrapping it with heating tape. If you get a really, really cold winter like we had with this last bomb cyclone, that it got to negative 39 with a wind chill, that little heating tape that you're wrapping around there ain't gonna do jack. So those are things to think about. What we've done is we've dedicated this shed here to the storage of our Johnson Su compost. The reason why we've dedicated a shed is because of how much money we're saving with the Johnson Su compost, and I want to make a large amount of Johnson Su compost so that going forward, if it's a possibility, we can be selling this on a larger scale. So that's one of the things that we're going to be exploring and talking about in a future video. But that's another reason why we're storing it in a shed like this, is so that we can make more compost for the possibility of selling it in the future, and because of the value it brings to our operation. So we start storing these in the shed even over the summer. The reason we do is because our high wind events, it keeps less of the compost drying out, and it worked really well for us. It broke down, over the summer really well in this shed. So we went ahead and paid the money to get the shed heated. It's heated with a propane heater. This last bomb cyclone event, where it got to negative 39 2 nights in a row, it even froze inside the heated shed because it was so cold. But it only froze the top inch of the compost, so we're going to be okay. But that's something that you guys want to think about when you're planning making Johnson Su, especially if you're a farming operation. If there's an area where you can store a bunch of these, you owe it to yourself to start making a few. And then if you figure out how to make the Johnson Su compost and you can make it at a high level, you need to look into selling it to other farmers that are interested in doing it, but that may not want to put the effort into making Johnson Su. So that's something for you guys to think about in the future going forward. But you definitely, if you can, want to keep it from freezing over the winter months. All right. The next thing we need to talk about is dealing with anaerobic conditions. If you guys have been following us since the beginning, you know that we created 9 bioreactors the very first year. We were really excited about it. Unfortunately, 8 of the 9 went anaerobic. This year, I'm really excited because we made 9 bioreactors and only 1 of those bioreactors went anaerobic. I kind of had an idea going forward that would go anaerobic because we use straight grass clippings. And one of the reasons I chose to use straight grass clippings is because I wanted to prove a point. You can't just put anything into your bioreactors and expect them to not go anaerobic or to have issues. So you have to be careful about your ingredients, but we'll talk about ingredients later. Right now, I want to just focus on specifically anaerobic conditions. If your compost goes anaerobic, do not freak out. We did 2 things and both things worked. One, I took a rod that was about the width of my finger, and we poked a bunch of holes every 2 inches through the compost so that air could flow through the compost. The other 2 compost bins, I didn't do anything. So, and then I had another one where I flipped it. Every single one of my piles went from anaerobic to aerobic conditions. It just takes time. If they go anaerobic, be prepared to have less fungally dominant compost. Ours only had like 20 or 30 species of fungus, and then it had like 250 species of bacteria. So it had less bacteria and less fungus in it because it went anaerobics. Don't overwater them. If you have a bunch of water coming out of the bottom of your bioreactor, you've been watering them too much, back off the water and put less water on there. Measure it out each day and keep backing it off until there's not that water coming out the bottom. So that'll help you to keep it from going anaerobic. If it does go anaerobic, like I said, back the water off, poke a bunch of holes in them, or do nothing, let them break down. Just be prepared that you're not going to have as fungally dominant compost. Make sure that you use a mixture of carbon base and nitrogen base sources and green sources in your compost. That'll help keep you from having your compost go anaerobic in the future. Next, I want to talk to you guys about temperature. I thought that it was really important to keep your Johnson Su compost at a temperature above 130 so that you killed all the pathogens, but not at 160 for too long, because I thought that was going to cause you to go anaerobic. So I was making that point this summer in a video, and I actually got a message from Wei Chin Su Johnson, and she let me know, hey, we had our compost get to 160 degrees for, I think she said 3 weeks. But anyway, it never went anaerobic. So the hot temperatures is not something that you have to worry about as much as I was worrying about it earlier this summer. So as far as the temperatures go, I think, getting it up to above 130 would probably be good as far as killing those pathogens. Dr. Johnson has done ones with just straight wood chips. They've only gotten to, I believe he said 80 degrees, and then they've cooled back off and they put the worms on them, and they did fine. So I'm not here to be the one that tells you have to kill the pathogens, or, you shouldn't kill the pathogens. My goal going forward is to get the compost up to around 160 degrees, hot enough to kill the pathogens with the materials that we've been using, because I feel confident that we're going to make good compost doing that because of the results that we had this year. So with that on the temperature, make sure that you buy a good composting thermometer that's about 3 feet long. To test the temperature, you just want to stick it in there in the middle of the compost the day after you started it and monitor that temperature, see how hot it is, and then follow the temperature on a regular basis until it gets down to 80 degrees. Once it gets down below 80 degrees, you can throw your composting worms in and you're ready to go. Last but certainly not least is ingredients. Your ingredients matter, like I talked about in an earlier YouTube video. And the reason I say that your ingredients matter, and let me be clear on this, for what we're doing and what we've experienced, we found that you can't just put anything in these bioreactors and expect them to not go anaerobic. Now, Dr. Johnson's pretty clear that you can, there's a whole bunch of things that you can compost and you can get away with and be fine with. And I believe him. I haven't figured out how to do that. I've figured out what mixture of ingredients works really well and makes really good compost. And so I'm going with those ingredients and I'm teaching you about those ingredients. Dr. Johnson is so much wiser and smarter than me, and I owe everything that we've done as far as composting in the last 3 years to him. So I am not going to tell you that he's wrong. I'm just saying I haven't experienced being able to put anything in these bioreactors and having it work. There's guys like out there like Diego Footer, and he shows that he's composted straight horse manure. And so like if there's other guys out there that are killing it and making it work, go ahead and try whatever ingredients you want to try to see if it's going to work for you. And if you make it work and it goes well, let me know about it, and I'll try to help share what you guys' experiences are like Diego Footer. I don't mind talking about Diego Footer doing straight horse manure or Dr. Johnson doing straight wood chips and having great success, because those are their experiences. I'm telling you about my experiences because I haven't been able to get doing compost where you do something like straight grass clippings, or when we did oat hay and alfalfa hay and horse manure. Those oat hay and alfalfa hay are green sources, and then the horse manure, is also high in nitrogen. I feel like you get too high a nitrogen source, you get too high a temperatures, and you're just going to go anaerobic. I don't know how you can avoid that. Somebody that's smarter than me that's composted something that was hotter than that never went anaerobic, go ahead and leave that in the comments as well so that people have all the information they need going forward. But as far as me and what I'm going to teach you in ingredients, I'm going to tell you these are the ingredients that we used and what worked and what didn't work. All right, so let's talk about what ingredients worked with those first few bioreactors we did. Now, here's another aspect I want to throw in here with you as well. I did 3 things. I really encourage you guys to write down these 3 things. 1, write down the date your compost was made. 2, put down the ingredients that went into your compost. And 3, record the peak temperature and what day it hit that peak temperature. So, you start out day 1, the day after you made your compost, check that temperature, write down how hot it is, and then once it hits that peak temperature, record the peak, and then write down how many days it took to get down to 80 degrees. And keep monitoring the smell. There should never be a funky or odor. Anaerobic bacteria release that sulfur smell that causes it to stink, and so you'll know that it's anaerobic if it has that smell. And then also, gnats will show up before the smell can occur sometimes. And so if you have gnats flying around your compost has parts of it, at least some of it, that's gone anaerobic. Now, you may have a situation where you have gnats for one day and they're gone. That's totally fine. But if you have gnats for more than a week, your compost is going anaerobic, and be prepared to do something to fix it. So the first bioreactor we made that in April. It was straight corn stalks. We didn't take it through the bath. I just got the corn stalks wetter than what they should have been, and we threw them into the bioreactor, and that compost turned out amazing. It was just straight corn stalks, and that one kind of baffles me because it got hot, and it was just straight corn stalks. I figured the carbon source, like the corn stalks, wouldn't get that hot, but they got pretty hot. I didn't have a thermometer, but just by touching it, I knew it was way over 100. So the corn stalks worked really well for us. For the next 2 bioreactors, we made those on April 30th and May 13th. And on those 2, we've used the same ingredients. We used 60% corn stalks, 20% grass clippings, 10% horse manure, and 10% wood chips. That broke down pretty well, but I lost my thermometer, so I had to order a new one, so I didn't get the first 2 temperatures recorded. But on that third one, I tested the temperature, and it was at 160. And at that point, that's when I was worried about temperatures getting too hot, the compost going anaerobic, and so I wanted to change up the temperatures. But looking back on it, after having Wei Chin Sue Johnson talk about temperatures and how 160 wasn't that big of a deal, I would use those ingredients all the time. 60% corn stalks, 20% grass clippings, 10% horse manure, 10% wood chips. That worked out amazing. As you can see here, this compost is awesome compost, and it looks great, smells great, and it broke down extremely well. So I was worried about it at the time. I'm not worried about it now. So that's why we changed up the ingredients on the next few bioreactors and went a different direction. So for bioreactor number 4, as we changed up the ingredients, I went to wheat straw. So I bought some wheat straw from the dairy that didn't have any twines in it, and we made our bioreactor 80% wheat straw, 10% wood chips, and 10% horse manure. That only got to 129. I did not like that it was only 129. I wanted it to get above 130 for a few days, or even hit 140. So I changed up my ingredients a little bit. The next bioreactor we did a couple weeks later, bioreactor number 5, and we did 70% wheat straw, 20% horse manure, and 10% grass. And so that got back up to 160. And so I thought, well, shoot, I'm getting too hot again. So the next one that we did, we took out the grass clippings, and we did 80% wheat straw, 10% horse manure, and 10% wood chips. And that still got up to 160. So at that point, I was like, well, it seems like it's going to be at 160 or whatever. So I thought, let's do some that are even different from those. And the last couple bioreactors, we did straight grass clippings because I wanted to prove that you couldn't do straight grass clippings and not have it go anaerobic. That's what I did. If somebody's done straight grass clippings and it has gone anaerobic, leave it in the comments below. But anyway, I digress. So we then did straight wheat straw on the last 2. Those only got to 120 degrees and did not break down right at all. I don't know that they're going to make great compost. They are not breaking down the way they should. When you look at Su Compost, it should be a rich, dark, potting soil looking kind of compost, kind of like how it looks on the other bioreactors that we've done, and right now it looks like this. And so I'm pretty confident that those composts we're not even going to end up using, that were straight wheat straw. So we learned a lot from our ingredients this year. So to wrap up on our ingredients, what we've learned in 2020 is that what works for us is using about 50 to 70% carbon source, and then getting some kind of a manure in there and something green in there as well, if you have the grass clippings to throw in there. I will caution you on something on the ingredients. When you source your material, whether it's grass clippings or wheat straw or whatever, you want to think about what was applied to this material. So like grass clippings, did someone apply a fungicide or herbicide to the grass prior to it getting mowed, and are your clippings contaminated with some kind of a side that's going to kill the bacteria and the fungus in your compost? Or if you do wheat straw, was fungicide sprayed to the wheat to kill stripe rust or something like that? Those are things that you need to think about when you're sourcing your material to go into your compost. Make sure that you're, something like leaves are one of the best things that you can put in there, because there's a large diversity of species on the leaves. It's a great carbon source, and it's not likely to have any kind of fungicide or herbicide sprayed onto the leaves of a tree. So that's a great carbon source. But be thinking about that when you're sourcing your material to go into your compost. What are you putting into your compost, and what kind of effect could it possibly have on your compost? That kind of wraps up everything that we learned about Johnson Su Compost in 2023. I got a lot more videos to talk to you about the things that we've learned this year, so stay tuned for that. And I've had a couple of you guys ask me, where are you speaking this year, and where can I come to a conference to hear you speak? My speaking schedule is on our website, youngredangus.com. If you go to the Book J. Young section, I have a list of my speaking engagements for 2023. So if you look there, you'll see all the places that I'm currently scheduled to speak for 2023, and you can come watch me. If you do see me on YouTube and decide to come watch me at a conference, please come meet me. I love being able to interact with people that follow the YouTube channel, and I really appreciate all of you guys that watch and subscribe and support us through the YouTube channel. So thank you very much for doing that, if you're planning on doing that. And check out the website. Like, we've got a bunch of cool updates to the website. I'm really excited about what our website I'm really excited about what the website designer is doing there, and it's a great place to see what's going on with Young Red Angus. Here's the video I was talking about early that shows you the 3 new designs for the Johnson Su bioreactors that we made this last summer. So check this video out and enjoy, and keep pursuing soil health.